Amen. Welcome to Restoration. My name's Jason. I'm one of the pastors here. So glad you're here. It's Christmas season. Fun to sing some Christmas songs and get in the mood for Christmas. For most of you, you will probably, most likely, go to a gathering of like your family, extended family, maybe some coworkers, some friends, and you're going to have like maybe some tensions in your relationship. Just for some reason, Christmas always adds a little bit more tension on our relationships. And so I just want, for a second, I want to paint a scene of Christmas for you. And you might not be like, this is my exact life that I'm living right now, but maybe you can relate a little bit. So just picture with me for a moment. Like, I'm going to drive to my family gathering. So I'm headed to my family gathering, and I just pull up, and I'm like, okay, remember, it's the most wonderful time of the year. So I grab what I brought. Because I'm a chef, I brought my Costco rolls, and I walk up to the door of my family, and I knock, open the door, everybody welcomes me. Hey, how are you? Love you, good to see you, kiss on the cheek, love you. Hey, how are you? And then all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, the controversial Uncle Jerry is walking towards me, and I'm like, you get in and out with Uncle Jerry. You got to get in and out with him. So, hey, Uncle Jerry, I don't want to talk to you. Hey, how are you? And he's like, yeah, I'm good, son. You see that debate the other week? No. And then he just goes on his rant. I can't believe these people. Then I go, okay, hey, Uncle Jerry, I'm going to go talk to Mom. I've yet to say hi to her. So I slip away and I go talk to my mom. She's like, honey, how are you? Give her a hug, kiss her on the cheek. She kisses me on the cheek. She's like, could you just help me and Aunt Carol for a minute in the kitchen? And so I come into the kitchen. Yeah, I'd love to help. Let me help you. So I'm pulling things out. And it's just like a little passive aggressive with her and Aunt Carol. Like, I don't know what it is. And then I find out what the true tension of the aggression is. Aunt Carol brought green bean casserole. Does she not know? My mom always makes the green bean casserole. Now we have 2 green bean casseroles, and there is a lot of tension there. So we're going, and I'm like, it's 30 minutes. I got to get out of here. And my mom then all of a sudden goes, get the green bean casserole out of the oven. It's on fire. And I get it out, and I'm like, well, at least we have Aunt Carol's green bean casserole. She didn't like that. Put it down. I just need some peace, because that's all we really want in Christmas is peace. I go get my eggnog. Thank God for the eggnog. I walk in and I see my brothers doing the sacred art of sitting on the couch and watching an NFL game. So I do the exact same thing, and I'm drinking my eggnog. And then I just know my oldest brother so well. See, three years ago, he went through a divorce, and he always brings up his ex, Susan. I actually kind of liked Susan, but all of a sudden, it's like every single time. I love him. I care for him, but he always brings up Susan. For 37 times I've talked to him, 37 times we've talked about Susan. And then a Geico commercial of all things comes on. 15% you can save on car insurance. And he goes, Susan should have saved me 15%. And then Dad goes, oh, hey, it's time for dinner. So we get up, we walk. Just keep the peace, keep the peace, keep the peace. I put my hands, and we do the prayer, and I held a kid's hand, which that kid is coughing, meaning we all know December 26th is coming, and we'll all be sick. But I hold the kid's hand and pray for my health and pray that we have a peace in our house, even though there's tensions are rising. And we go and we sit and we eat at the big table. I'm not at the kids' table anymore. I'm at that big table with a leaf in it. Well, who knew you had a leaf till Christmas dinner? But you get it there, and I'm eating, and I'm looking at my family. And, you know, we always like talk just kind of about random stuff. But for some reason, Cousin Sarah always gets brought up. She's like, the golden child. Okay, you went to Harvard. All right, you sold your company for $100 million and you're traveling through France this summer. Sorry, don't ask me what my life's like right now. Anyway, and then I find out that Sarah, her son is in kindergarten, Mason, and he was valedictorian. Who knew? The kindergartners could have a valedictorian, but Mason does. And so I'm just like, please don't ask me a question because I don't want to have to share about my life. We finish up dinner. I get my little slice of fudge because I don't want that much. And then, but you want 2 desserts. So I get then a little slice of apple pie, but I get the bigger one and a little slice of fudge. And I eat it in the corner and I go, you know what? No one actually asked me an intentional question this entire 4 hours. And I start to feel like alone. I start to feel frustrated. I start to feel angry. And so I just eat more and more dessert to stuff those feelings down. And then I go, you know what? I tell my mom and dad, hey, I got to go home. And they're like, what? Oh, no, don't leave so fast. It's only 4 o'clock. Well, I got to go let the dog out. And I thank God every time for that dog, for that reason, that I got to let him out. And so I got to go. So I get my little Pyrex container of to-goes. I say goodbye to everybody. And I walk out. And I sit in my car. And I start to drive away. And I look in the mirror and I go, remember, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Maybe that's not you. Maybe that's not your complete family situation, but there are relational tensions in Christmas, aren't there? We all have relational tensions. Maybe you're a parent and you're hosting Christmas this year, and you've spent hours, days working on Christmas, and all of a sudden your kids come in, and everyone's just a little bitter, a little bristly, a little angry, and a little agitated. And you're like, what did I do? I'm just trying to create the perfect environment. There's tension that has happened. Or maybe you are trying to go home this Christmas, and you just can't. And you feel really guilty. Everyone's like, why aren't you coming home? Why aren't you coming home? And you don't really want to share, but you can't afford the $1,500 plane ticket, and so you just feel guilty. There are tensions that we have to navigate when it comes to Christmas. And I think we all long for something, and what we long for is peace. You want peace this Christmas. And I don't think you just want peace. What I think we all desire is this. We want a peace that is greater, that comes from true loving relationships with the people around us. Don't we all want relationships that love and care for one another? That is what we desire, I believe, more than anything, is this type of peace. In Proverbs 17:1, it says this: better a dry crust with peace and quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. We want peace in our house. We want peace this Christmas. We want peace relationally. And what strife is, it's just anger, it's bitterness, it's resentment. It's very distinct than healthy conflict. See, we'll have conflict this Christmas. All great relationships have conflict. The people you're closest with, you have conflict with. The goal is not we don't have conflict, but we don't want strife. We don't want anger. We don't want disagreement. We don't want bitterness, because strife and anger will always kill loving relationships. I don't know about you, but in like Christmas, I just want to be Enneagram 9s. You know what that is? It's the peacemaker. Let's all just get along. Let's all just get along. And if you really think about that, is that really the goal you want for this Christmas? Let's just get along. Let's just skate by. No, we want to deeply be connected with another person. We want love and peace in every relationship, in our households this Christmas. Yet Christmas just continually can add in pressure. We have this pressure of strife. We have expectations of families, gifts, chemistry with family you haven't seen. This adds pressure and it intensifies our relationship. Another thing that adds to Christmas pressure is the idea and just the emotion of loneliness. In America right now, we are in a loneliness epidemic. In Denver, we are the third loneliest city in the U.S. 61% of young adults from a Harvard study 2 years ago said they were completely lonely. 47% of Americans say, I'm lonely right now. 46% say, I just feel left out. So half of this room feels a sense of loneliness. So if you're in a loneliness epidemic, most people walk into Christmas with their family hoping that their family will cure their loneliness pain. Yet a lot of times it just makes it worse, because you realize that your family isn't as close as you hoped or thought it was. And so what you went for to cure your pain of being lonely is not happening through your family. So we have relationships that can have strife between them. Couple that with loneliness, and there's an underlying problem that makes a dangerous cocktail of Christmas relational tension. So here's my hope. I think we all want peace this Christmas. We all want love in our relationships. Yet it can be so challenging because of our relationship tensions with our friends, our coworkers, our family members. And, we all know we're supposed to love all these people, but it's hard to genuinely like some people at times, isn't it? So today, what I want to do is I want to just share some biblical strategies for you to have really good relationships this Christmas, where you can have peace and love in the relationships and people you interact with. So in our relationships, ultimately, Jesus is to be our model. As followers of Jesus, we look to Jesus for the model of how we should live and act and how we should interact with others. There's a key point that I want you guys to see today, and it's how you're going to have great relationships this Christmas. It's this, is that Jesus is a leader who initiates. Let me say that one more time. Jesus is a leader who initiates. Jesus doesn't wait for us. He comes to us. In Romans 5:8, this is what it says about Jesus. It says, but God demonstrates his own love for us. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The truth about the gospel is you did not go to God first. You did not run after him. He ran after you. He found you. He initiated with you. He loved you even at your worst. Most of us are waiting for relationships to come to us. This Christmas, your temptation is you are going to wait for people to have a loving conversation with you. But I want to propose today that we might be like Jesus and we might initiate loving conversations, because this is what the Christmas story is all about. Jesus comes down as God and becomes a baby and is born in a manger. He comes to us. He loves us. He cares enough to leave heaven and love us. We are to initiate with others. So if you want a better Christmas, if you want a better relationship with your family, your friends, your coworkers, we have to initiate like Jesus. John 1:14, this is what it says about Jesus, the word Jesus. He became flesh and he made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. See, Jesus comes to us and he initiates. When the angel came to the shepherds, this is what the angel said. He goes, today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah. He is the Lord. What's so interesting about this is the angel was initiating with the shepherds, which the shepherds were the lowly people. They were like, didn't have any money. They were very poor, signifying that Jesus initiates with all types of people. Not rich, not poor, but all. Does not matter your socioeconomical class. Jesus is initiating. This is the beautiful thing about Christmas. And in Philippians, Paul said it this way about Jesus, that he, in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. Jesus initiates. So if you want a great relationship this Christmas season, you have to initiate. You have to go first. The Christmas story is all about Jesus initiating with the world. And what was the outcome of that initiation? Peace. Jesus brought peace to this world by initiating. Do you know how you can bring peace to your family, to your coworkers? Is by initiating with them. I believe that Jesus wants to use each and every single person here to bring peace into our world. And so for our last few minutes, I just want to share kind of 4 ways that we can initiate loving conversations. So I just want to give you some tips on things that I've been learning of how to initiate loving conversations in your relationships. I was inspired by a book I read by a Penn State professor named Heather Holman. It's a book called 6 Conversations. A lot of these things I took from her and gleaned a lot of wisdom from her. But one of the things that I was fascinated by is she just talked about the need for a conversation revival in America. Like what technology has done, it's allowed us to go get all this information. So everyone has the answers to everything, but no one actually knows how to have a conversation anymore. No one knows how to look someone in the eye. No one knows how to dig deep with someone. She goes, we need a conversation revival throughout the United States, and it will have a massive impact. That's why Ralph Waldo Emerson said this. The best of life is a conversation. So my hope for you today is that you would learn how to initiate conversations with the people you love the most and have an impact on your world. So our first step to initiating loving conversations and bringing peace to your Christmas is this. Number one is just to be curious. Be curious. If you want to initiate loving conversations, you need to be interested in someone's life. Our tendency is typically to talk about the news, the sports, whatever is going on in life, or to do little monologues about our career or our children. But most people never ask someone a question. I've looked someone in the eye and talked to them for 30 minutes and asked them question after question after question, and they did not even know what I did for work because I was initiating with them, but they would never ask me something. We need to be a curious people. This is why Dale Carnegie said this in his book, How to Make Friends, Win and Influence People. He said, you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. Our natural tendency is trying to prove ourselves. Look what I've done. Look what I've done. Yet how we influence the world is by asking people questions, being curious. This was Jesus' superpower. He was a question asker. Most of the time you read the New Testament, he was not answering their questions. He was asking them. He was intent on learning people. He was curious. In Philippians 2, this is how Paul says it. He says this, let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. We are not just to care about what we think or our opinions, but how we really love people is when we're curious about them, when we look to their interests. In the book, Heather Holman talks about how curiosity is the new superpower, that how most people never ask any questions. And she goes, if your kids would just develop the secret act of being curious and asking questions, they will dominate this world. As she interacts with college students that come into Penn State, she's like, always the best ones are the ones that are asking the questions, that are taking initiative. Curiosity really comes from digging out like treasure in people. It's the belief that every single person has something interesting about them. Like, I can learn from any person. I can dig deep with someone, but it's like finding a treasure. I have to go into their life, go into their soul, and I got to pull it out. The person that I have learned more about this than any other person is our founding pastor, Ron Johnson. Ron is the most curious person I have ever been around. And what it takes to be curious is humility. To be honest, okay, I'm going to make a generational claim, so don't crucify me outside if you're over the age of 60. Most 60-year-olds don't ask me anything, nor care about my life. They don't. They're not interested. They tell me all about their accomplishments, but they typically don't ask me about my life. Ron is like the complete opposite. I've seen him grill my daughter, Selah, who's 13, and care deeply about her. He's pulling out. He's asking questions. He's learning. He's learning. He's learning. He's humble. He's humble. He's humble. And what that has done for Ron is I'll go to these Christian conferences of 5,000 people, and he is not the keynote speaker or even speaking on stage. Yet, like, in an hour and a half, we're in the green room with all the speakers. I'm like, how did we sneak in here? How are we here? And Ron's there just peppering all these guys with questions, and they respect Ron deeply and bring him in close because he is a learner. He is humble. What if we were all curious people? This Christmas, what if we dug out of people and go, I can learn from people. I can hear people. James 1:19 says this, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. One of these days, we're going to do a sermon series called Oklahoma Sayings from Jason's dad. But I remember my dad saying, this is why you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, son. It's good advice, though. If we're quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry, slow to give our opinion. See, curiosity listens and it pulls out of people. Might we be like Jesus and be initiative takers and go first by being curious with our friends, our family members this Christmas. This Thanksgiving, I was reading all about this, praying about this message, and I just felt personally convicted. I'm like, I want this in my household. I want this with my extended family. So Molly and I just started praying about some questions we would ask the extended family as they came to Thanksgiving. And to be honest, we're not like these super intentional people. Normally we're like pretty like really like kind of surface level, but we just decided, okay, let's ask 2 questions. And so I gave you like 5 different questions that I've asked in different situations. But I would just say pick 2 of these and use them in your family this Christmas. Here's a question. So you could do this. Just say, I'm so curious. Tell me about this. So someone's talking to you and you go, oh, I'm curious about that. Will you tell me more about that? You're digging out of curiosity. Another question, what is one of the best experiences you had this year? We went around the Thanksgiving table and we actually shared this. In Colorado, everybody's looking for a great experience. We're like, this is an easy question. Everybody's got something. So we went around and we just asked, what's the best experience you had this year? If you want also these questions, they're all in the app in our notes. Another question, what has changed in life this year for you? Especially with family. We think everybody's still the same, but life changes. Another question, what do you dream about these days? And then lastly, if God could answer one prayer next year, what would you pray for? We asked this at the end of our Thanksgiving dinner. It was awesome to hear. And people have different spiritual backgrounds at our dining room table, but that was an easy ask of just, what would you ask God for? And we ended, and Molly got to pray over her family, and it was awesome. I would just encourage you, be intentional, be curious, ask questions, take initiative. So we're to take initiative by being curious. The second way we should take initiative is just by believing the best in people, to have a positive regard about our family and friends. You know, you can be curious and still self-serving, but when you believe the best, it means you respect, you admire, you enjoy, you like that person. A conversation will go so much different if you actually believe the best about someone. In 1 Corinthians 3:7, this is what Paul says how love should be. Love should always protect. Love should always trust. It should always hope. And it should always persevere. We should always trust one another. We should always have hope in one another. We should help each other persevere. This should be our attitude as we walk into conversations. You guys have probably all like walked into a conversation and believed the best about a person. But have you ever walked into a conversation and believed the worst about a person? Am I the only sinner in here? Okay. Like where you just walk in and you're like, I have no good thoughts about you right now. It typically happens like, did you ever know someone like your arch nemesis in high school? Anybody have an arch nemesis? You got to have an arch nemesis that you just hated. You're like, I hate you. And then you meet them like 10 years later and you naturally think, you're a terrible person. I hate you. And then you end up having to interact with them. And you're like, dang it, you're like the nicest person now. Like you're so loving. You went on that mission trip. You did that. You gave that. Like, wow, you were an amazing person. See, it's so easy for us to prejudge someone based on their past, isn't it? What they did 10 years ago. And you know who we do that to the most? Our family. We've had the most history with them. We know all their background, and we almost believe that they have never changed. Like, okay, do people change? Yes. Do you hope that people say about you that you have changed? Hopefully no one goes like, oh, they're still like their 16-year-old self. No, you want to change. Yet for some reason in our heads, we believe that our family is static, that they're the same person, and we look at them through the same lens. This is why when I go home, in my childhood home, for some reason, I like teleport back in time as a 38-year-old man to my 16-year-old self. And I'm like, why didn't I brush my teeth today? Oh, it's because I'm at my parents' house. Like, I don't do that. And it's the same reason why, like, you get treated by your parents like you're 16. Because there's this teleportation, it's weird, where you just kind of like, I'm going back to how we used to be. People change. People change, and we need to believe the best. In Luke 6, it says this. It says, do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. It's very easy for us with history of people to condemn people. And really, I talked about this a couple months ago in a message where I talked about the different kinds of judgment, how there's evaluation and then how there's condemnation. It's okay to evaluate in judgment. Like, you should evaluate the person you're dating to see if you want to marry them. That's a judging attitude. Yet it turns into evil when we condemn people, when we say, you are to go to hell. We don't have an attitude of condemnation, yet it's so easy for us to put this on our family. And there is a need to balance forgiveness and boundaries. There's some people in here that just need to forgive your parents. They need to forgive your kids. They need to forgive your uncle. There's some people in here that your family has done some terrible things to you, and they've never repented. They've never accepted responsibility, and you've had to put up a boundary. But for a lot of people in here, the work we need to do is just forgiveness. We need to walk into our families, and we need to pray, and we need to initiate. Where will forgiveness come from? Who's going to start it? Who's going to start the conversation? Who's going to start loving that person? Who's going to be the person that asks that hard question? May it be us. This is what Ephesians 4 says about us, that we are to be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as in Christ God forgave you. We're to walk in kindness and compassion this Christmas. And there's a beauty that comes from Jesus coming to earth, is that he laid down his life for you so you might lay down your life for others. He went first. And I know there's 3 people in here right now that are thinking this. Jason, you do not know about my family. Like, you don't know about my family. Like, my family's crazy. I can't forgive them. We were once sinners, far from God, and he loved us no matter what. May we initiate forgiveness in our family. So I want to give you 2 practical steps in this, just quickly, to believe the best. The first thing is you just need to do your work before you have interactions with your family or friends that you're frustrated with. Do your own personal work. So many times, like in a conversation, you haven't done forgiveness in your heart first. See, forgiveness starts in your heart first. Forgiveness starts through you working your own stuff out. If you're married, if you've ever been in a conflict and it's rising and you're frustrated, the best time to have a conversation is not at that moment. It's to calm down and to work it out in your heart. So before you walk in to Christmas this year, what do you need to work out in your heart? Maybe you just need to talk to a friend and have them pray over you. Maybe you need to see a counselor before you go and just process how you're feeling. Maybe some of you just need to fast for a day and pray and go, God, let me forgive and believe the best. You need to do the work. Secondly, a great exercise is this. If you're going to spend time with family or friends or people you're frustrated with, a great exercise is to take a piece of paper and take like 10 minutes and literally write out their name and what you appreciate about them. Again, you're believing the best. You're thinking the goodness of them. You're going, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt because I bet you want the benefit of the doubt. We believe the best. So we are to initiate loving relationships by believing the best. And our third step is we need to initiate loving conversations by expressing concern. What this means is it just means that you want them to win. You're like invested, you care. It's not just believing in them, but you actually want it to happen. You like want success for your friends and family. You try to support them, you encourage them, you inspire them. Investment means this. It means supporting beyond empathy and carrying people's burdens. We actually carry their burdens. We put their burdens on our back and help them. Galatians 6:2 says this, carry each other's burdens, and in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. We're to carry one another. We're to help one another. Maybe it's a difficult situation, a struggle, a challenge. And what a lot of people don't think about right here is what is the burden that a lot of us carry? It's actually the burden of our sin. The thing that weighs me down actually the most is my stupidity and the things I fall short with God. Yet, when my family or my spouse or my kids see that, sometimes people can use that sin against me. Jason, you're always angry. Man, I just need you to help me carry that burden. Like, that's my sin, and I know I'm not a perfect person, but I need some help. And so we show love and we express concern, and we know that people aren't going to be perfect. We carry the burden. Sometimes carrying the burden means having a difficult conversation with your family. It's not all about just, we got to keep the peace. You might need to have a really hard conversation with someone in your family or friends because you love them so much, you don't want them stuck in the life that they're living. You are concerned. I'm not a real deep person at times. I like making lots of jokes. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, which is like, I like to have fun. And then when bad things happen, I'm like, let's talk about something else. I try to divert all the time. I'm actually pretty bad at being empathetic at times because I want to make people's negative emotions be positive, where all they want to do is just me to listen to them. And for me, one of the best practices that I've put in my own life to grow in actually this idea of not just being empathetic, but sharing concern is the attitude of prayer. Like, I can pray with you, and that's even greater than empathy because I'm asking God to do something. So when somebody shares something difficult with me, when my family shares something difficult with me, my response, it's not all the time, I'm still growing, is trying to go, can I pray for you in that? Because this is what Fulton J. Sheen says. It says the shortest distance between two people is prayer. You might have a lot of things that hold you back from relationships with the people you love, but prayer brings us together. So maybe this Christmas, you just need to ask your family, how can you pray for them? And actually pray for them. And then follow up a little bit later and ask, hey, how's it going? I care about this. I'm still praying for you. Can I help in any way? And then also, we're not just supposed to carry each other's sin burden. There's also a burden of just material possession at times that we need to help out. If God has given to us, we need to give away. 1 John 3 says this, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. This Christmas, you might see someone in need. You might see your family in need. You might need to provide, because we want to be people that not just say it in our words, I love you, I care for you, but actually come through in action and in truth. Jesus was so good at being the first to express concern. Let us be the same way. I love our church, what we're doing as a church right now. With Billy talked about the giving tree, which is for 4 families that need Christmas. And 3 of those families actually go to Restoration. One is a refugee family that's just moving here. And we want to express concern, not just by like, we care, we love you. Let's actually do something about it. So I just encourage you, as you walk out of here, if that's on your heart of just, I want to express concern, you can grab one of those little ornaments off the tree, and there's 4 different families, and they have 4 different descriptions of what's happening in their life. We have people that have been in and out of homelessness, single mothers that are struggling right now, but that we can have a huge impact, and we can actually share the love of Christ. And the same reason is why we always push YEO at the year end is we want to express concern. Over the Christmas holiday, we want to have an attitude as a church that we give, that we care about what is happening, not just in our world, but around the world. So we initiate loving conversations by expressing concern. And lastly, I'll close with this. The 4th step of initiating a loving conversation is just this. It is to share your life. It's by just mutually sharing your life and being vulnerable. You can be a great question asker. You can help people. You can be concerned about people. But a lot of times we can still keep people away. And we have no vulnerability. We don't share about ourselves. All of us are waiting for someone to ask us the appropriate question to pull out of us. Yet maybe we need to take the first step and we just need to share something vulnerable with another person. Maybe this Christmas is just sharing your own vulnerability. In 2 Corinthians 1:4, it says this about God. God who comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Did you catch it? a lot of times we go to other people to comfort us in our troubles. We go to our family, our friends, their Christmas party. And it says we should go to God and he will comfort us. Why? So that we can comfort those who are in trouble. So when you are comforted by God, when God works in your life, you are now an ambassador of that comfort to your family, to your friends, to your coworkers. He initiated with us. Now we share vulnerably. And this can be very difficult because you don't know if they're going to share back. But Jesus went first, and so do we. 1 Thessalonians says this. It says, we loved you so much that we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. This is Paul talking to the church of Thessalonica. And what he's saying is, we loved you. And what love comes out, what the outpouring of love is, that we share our lives and we share the gospel of God with you. So this Christmas, would you share your life? Would you share what's going on? Would you share the hardship that you're facing? Would you be vulnerable? But would you also share the gospel of God? Because we believe that the most important thing that a person has to wrestle with is what they are doing with Jesus Christ. And we believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And if you are a follower of Jesus, you know what the most important thing to you is? Jesus. So if you want to be vulnerable with someone, would you not share the most important thing in your life? So we need to look for opportunities to share the gospel of God. I promise you, people are way more open right now for the next couple weeks to the things of God than normal. Don't miss the opportunity. Ask God to give it to you. And this is why as a church, we have our Christmas Eve service and why we make it all carols that people know. It's a really short message, I promise, like under 20 minutes short. And the reason is we want people that are far from God for you to go, I can bring them here. It's a safe place. There's candlelight. There's songs they know, and it's going to be under an hour. We are praying that God would use this Christmas service to reach your friends, your family members, and your coworkers. Did you know that only 6% of people say that they walked into church on their own initiative? But 83% walked into the church because a friend or relative invited them. You could actually have an impact on someone's soul this year by just inviting someone to church, inviting them to hear the goodness of God, because we know the only way we actually have a real loving relationship is if they know Jesus. So this Christmas, will you initiate loving conversations? Will you be curious? Will you believe the best in people? Will you express concern? And will you share your life? In West Texas, there is a giant mountain that Jeff Bezos bought. And in this mountain, he is building a 500-foot clock inside the mountain. It's called the Clock of Long Now. It's all mechanical. It's powered by day and night thermal cycles. It's synchronized at solar noon. And people are like, why are you building this? And he goes, it's a symbol for long-range thinking. So here's what the clock does. It only has 5 chimes. And one chime goes off every year. A different chime goes off every 10 years. A different chime goes off every 100 years, every 1,000 years. And there's one big chime at 10,000 years. Christmas is a once-a-year chime. On December 26th, you have one less Christmas left. You have one less dinner with your family. You have one less Christmas party. Time is short. This might be the last conversation you get to have to initiate a loving conversation. So let this Christmas be a chime to remember that God sent his son for peace on earth, and that you are sent people to bring peace into your world. Would you join me in prayer? God, as I think about having loving conversations and relationships with the people around me, Lord, I cannot do this on my own. I don't have the power. I need your Holy Spirit to guide me. So Lord, right now, I just pray a blessing over each person here, God, that as they leave out of here, Lord, that you would guide them, that you would give them what to say, when to say it, that they would share with their family, that they would love their family. And God, that we would hear story after story after story of relationships being reconciled, loving relationships continuing. God, let us be a beacon of hope to our family and to our friends through the power of your Holy Spirit. Thank you, Jesus, that you did not leave us to our own, but that you sent your Son.